From time immemorial, the sovereign nations have inhabited, protected, and preserved the land that is so-called Canada. We acknowledge this fact. The land we serve is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Chippewa. Real World's offices are in Toronto, which is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our panel today at the Real World Film Festival. I'm Mark from the Independent Production Fund. I'll be moderating the panel today. We have 4 amazing creators here from 2 separate series, The Drop and Streams Flow from a River. In a minute, I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves. And I'll do a presentation at the beginning on the IPF. And then after that, I'm just going to hand it over to them to interview each other. They have such interesting series, they're interesting people, and have great insights on what it's like to develop and produce a short form series. At the end, we will do a live Q&A, so throughout the event, please type your questions into the comment section on the right-hand side. And at the end, I'll pick them up and I'll moderate them to our great panel. So on my right, even though I'm left, is Shant Joshi. I'll hand it to him first to introduce himself.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, I'm Shant Joshi. I'm producer of Streams Flow from a River. I'm also president of Fate Pictures. We're a media production company based out of LA and Toronto on a mission to decolonize Hollywood by creating cinematic content for, by, and about queer, trans, and BIPOC people. I'll leave it at that. Many credits at Sundance and Berlin and TIFF and all that kind of fun stuff, but want to get to everyone. So that's me. I'm Shant.
And writer Christopher Yip, do you want to go to you next?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Christopher Yip. I'm a writer-director based in Toronto, but I moved from Edmonton a few years ago, and that's why, Alberta born and raised. I really fucking love Asian people. So I really like telling Asian stories, and I'm grateful that Streams is part of it, and happy to say that Streams will be streaming on Super Channel, Apple TV, and Amazon Prime Video in the new year. So yeah, that's me. But anyways, enough Streams. Let's hear about The Drop.
Bravo, Christopher. I'll go next. I'm Dani Pagliarello. I'm an actor, series creator, and co-showrunner with Aisha for The Drop. I make comedy, and my humor is sort of provocative. I recently did the CAM module with Women in the Director's Chair, and actually even more recently, me and Aisha shot The Drop, which
yeah, we did that. Wow. Hello, everyone. My name is Aisha Evelyna. I am an actor, a filmmaker. I'm passionate about bringing the stories of those on the margins to the forefront of our social consciousness. So that's my shtick. I feel like as a writer, and this will kind of really telling about like what The Drop is, and when it comes to Daniela and I coming together. A lot of what I do is like writing through a sociopolitical lens, and like I feel like I make a lot of strong sociopolitical commentary. And I am a co-showrunner on The Drop, which we just shot, and it'll be out in 2023, March 2023-ish. And it is Narcity Canada's first scripted series that they're going to be hosting for us. So, wee!
That's so exciting. All of you that the series are coming up soon. I'm so excited to see them after seeing them through the entire development and production process. Okay, so I will give a 10-minute, no longer, no less, presentation of what the IPF does to kind of set the stage for how the creators were able to make these series through our funding programs. Okay, there is the drop there actually on our title slide. So today I'll be getting into a little bit about what the IPF does, our mandate, our program goals, and then I'll be focusing on our two main programs, the short form series development packaging program and our short form series production program. It's more like one program with a part A and a part B than two separate programs. Okay, so what does the IPF do? The IPF supports Canadian creators, writers, and producers by providing development and production financing for digital-first series, and we also support television series. Here's our contact information. There's only 3 of us at the Toronto office. We also do have a Montreal office in case you have a French language series that you're developing. You have our website, our general email, and then I've also put my personal email in there as well in case you want to reach out to me if you have any questions afterwards. So as I mentioned, we have 2 main programs that I'll go over in a minute. We also do fund traditional broadcast TV series through our Kojiko TV production program. And we also have a professional development program that provides grants for industry events, much like the Real World Film Festival. I won't be going into detail on either of those today because they're a little bit separate from the purpose of this specific panel. But if you do have questions, please reach out later. So first up is our short form series development packaging program. That's the long name of it. It's designed to assist independent producers to create high quality original scripted short form series. And the goal is that successful projects will be in a better position to attract partners, financing, distribution, and move successfully into production. Other goals are that you will create and develop strong creative materials. We hope that we can encourage the incubation of new talent and new voices, while also encouraging the participation of experienced professionals who want to try something a little different, as well as provide opportunities for insightful business development. Okay, so getting into what is eligible, what our program funds, we define short form series as a series that has episodes that run less than 20 minutes, separating it from that 22-minute, half-hour traditional broadcast series. So that's the only time element that you have to be aware of. We only fund scripted fictional series, so unfortunately, nonfiction is not eligible. However, any genre is eligible. So drama, comedy, sci-fi, horror, romance, action, anthology series are permitted, animation is permitted. Anything that is fictional is what we're looking for, as well as we have a focus on new and original creative concepts. You must be a Canadian production company, and a Canadian writer must be attached to the series. As I mentioned, nonfiction series are not eligible. Series with episodes running over 20 minutes, obviously. Subsequent seasons, so unfortunately we no longer support, or currently we no longer fund second or subsequent seasons of series, but there are other financing opportunities available if you are successful with your first and have more story to tell. Projects that are not targeting digital platforms first, so specifically traditional broadcast series, as well as projects that applied for production funding previously. So if you're too far along, you're ready for production, this development program is not for you. What you need, so getting into what you need to apply, we have 2 main elements. One is the team. So you need a Canadian writer, as I mentioned, with previous experience as a writer on anything. It can be a short film, and a producer. It's a little confusing, but I'll say that the writer and the producer can be the same person when you apply, as long as they have 1 credited experience credit, or they can be 2 separate people. You'll also need to hire a mentor, so either an experienced story editor to help you out on the creative side with the scripts, or a development executive to help you out on the business side. You'll apply with a maximum of 3 pages in the creative pitch, which should include a synopsis of the series, a story arc over the season, description of the lead characters, the format of a typical episode, and an outline. However you see fit to best sell your series to us and our jury. You'll also need a 1-page vision document. This is where we want you to get a little more personal. What drives you? What's the passion for making the series? Why you? Why now? And then you also need some standard documents like a development budget. We have a template on our website, a development schedule, which I'll get into the timeline of in a little bit, and a list of previous development phases if you have any. Successful applicants receive a maximum of $30,000 for the development of their series, and it's in the form of a repayable advance if you go into production. If you never end up go into production, you don't need to pay us back. It's just that if you go into production, the money is returned to us and recycled back into the programs to support future projects in subsequent years. Eligible expenses. So what do you do with that $30,000? Three main things. You make a demo, proof of concept, or trailer, however best to sell your series on the screen. You write 3 episode scripts for us and an updated synopsis of the series. So a little bit more of a fully fleshed out Bible, expanding upon the 3-page creative that you submitted in the first phase. And then the goal is that these materials are used to interest production financiers and potential licensors, broadcasters, digital platforms, distributors, other funds, etc. So we hope to give you some money to make the best package you can of your show to go off and find others to support you in the production phase. Which brings us to our production program. Only projects that are successfully funded through our development packaging program are eligible for production financing. So you won't be competing with other series looking for production financing. The maximum production funding available for each project is $200,000, and it's in the form of an equity investment. So the application requirements for a production program are essentially what you create during that development phase. So the fully fleshed out Bible, 3 episode scripts, the proof of concept. You also need a preliminary production budget, a financing plan. If you've confirmed or are close to confirming other key creatives or performers for your series, we want to know that information. A production schedule, an audience plan, and a list of distributors or platforms that you hope to target with your development materials if you haven't secured a platform already. So the timeline, the deadline for our development packaging program is March 1st of next year, typically. We confirmed that in mid-November at our board meeting, but it's been March 1st for the last 10 years, and I don't really see that changing. The portal, so you can start applying in early February, maybe even mid-January. And it's not first come, first serve. All the applications go in, and after March 1st, we begin to evaluate them alongside our jury. Decisions are announced in mid-April, so about a month and a half later. And then the funding is released in spring/early summer. So you have from mid-April to the end of September to create those materials. And then you would apply to us in early October for production financing. So when you build out your development schedule, that's kind of the timeline you'll be working with. After you apply for production financing in early October, the decisions are announced in mid-November. So it is kind of a year-long process before you receive that production financing. So yeah, thank you so much for your time for joining us here today on this panel. Usually the end of this presentation would have tips and tricks on the application process, what makes a strong application, more information about our jury. But my time today is limited, and I think that hearing firsthand from 4 creators is not only more entertaining and interesting, but possibly even more insightful because they have success. They have found success through our programs. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Shant and Christopher. They're going to introduce the Streams Flow from a River clip/trailer that they want to show you guys today, so you're a little bit more comfortable with and aware of the series.
Yeah, so we're just going to show a brief clip of one of the episodes. The series is about a family of Chinese laundromat owners who go back to Alberta, and it tells the story about, you know, the generations, what's passed down from generation to generation. And so this clip is from kind of like the beginning seed of how they chose Alberta of all places and a laundromat there. So yeah, enjoy.
哎呀，恭喜晒啊！哇，你着長衫好靚啊！
喺香港帶過嚟嘅，
係隻戒指。
係嘅，呢個添係我媽媽嘅。
哎呀，好靚啊，襯晒你啊！係啦，你媽媽咧
？What do you mean you don't have any money？
我喺度打工，點解我租地方冇員工優惠先
？Not my fault you assume that。
我哋唔夠錢俾啊
！Then go to the kitchen and start washing。You are no good。
我今日結婚啊，講堂。
哎呀！
放開啦！
What does the agreement say?
What agreement? Hey, that's our wedding money.
For my family, we wouldn't want us starting our marriage off in debt. Okay? It's okay.
我侄仔我真係好叻啦！佢開始有一個破仔，而家變咗幾多個啦？佢俾埋，梗係掙錢啦！
唔係係嘛？洗衣店同酒鋪喺 Alberta。
有啲嘢你唔知啦，Alberta 唔夠2個嘢啦，一個係乾淨衫，第二係酒啦，你唔知啦。
Wow. It looks so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The actors are so good.
It has.
I love a long shot. I love a long shot, especially when the actors are just like so in tune with each other, and it just looks so good. Congratulations, you two.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, if you're curious about the series, you got to watch it all in the new year. But yeah, like big props, obviously, to our AD team and our cast for just being down for like several rehearsals, and then just like, you know, yeah, we did a lot of takes like that, like 7 times and stuff. So we're very lucky that everyone was game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, did you find it took longer to shoot something that was a long take because you had to rehearse it quite a few times?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about the teaser, we didn't do so many long take shots in the series itself. We did some. But definitely with the teaser, I'm really happy, you know, with the prep that went into it, because we shot all of that in one day, and we basically did like the kids scene in the beginning of the day, 3 hours, when the kids are teens, and then when the kids are adults, just like 3-hour blocks, and that, like, big props to the crew at Faye and Malachi Ellis who produced that, and also my DP Allen, for just being game. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
It's amazing that you shot that trailer in one day because it's like 4.5 minutes long. There's snow at one point. Like it was impossible to look away from.
Thank you. Under 12 hours. Like, we wrapped early. Wow. Like, it was insane. It was
even during production, I can attest, we ended our days early. And not for lack of quality material, but like it was.
How many pages were you guys shooting a day?
I think
that's the first AD
10
question.
a day.
10?
We moved pretty quick.
8 to 10.
So
yeah,
in total,
15 days to shoot 90-ish pages. So yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and we did make cuts to like make certain days and stuff, but it was, yeah, the crew was just so down, which is lovely. Like, we and the cast as well, kind of like everyone was run and gun, but we had time to like set up our shots and do some prep and rehearsals. So yeah,
that's amazing. And just going back to your development phase, when you found out that because it is such a big like task to come up with an idea, really put it down on paper so that people can understand it and that it's clear. And once you were actually rewarded the money, what took precedent for you? Was it writing? Was it shot listing immediately? Like, where were you at when you were awarded the money?
For development?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we had gone through a round of development with IPF the year previous with the project with Trisha Hager-Ellis for a project called The Morning After. So we had a bit of experience running, and granted that we got the money like about a month and a half into the pandemic, so that was pretty weird too. So it was a bit of a weird shoot, but we had that experience, and we've kept developing. We've done 3 years so far of development with IPF, and this is our first project we went into production with IPF, and so we've learned a little bit about how to use those 6 months, because you apply in like March, and then you have to like if you get awarded it, you have to like get everything ready to go by like end of September, like 1st of October, basically. And those 6 months fly by like nothing. Like I was telling Chris when we got the money, I was like, this is like, you have to start now, and you have to like, I think the way we would like to work, and there's the way we would like to work, and there's the way we end up working, right? So the way we would like to work is, we'd like to get the scripts done first, or ideally the Bible done first, and then get into the scripts. And ideally we're getting the scripts done by like August, because we don't want it to overlap into getting the whole thing put together, the whole package put together, which is usually September. But halfway through the development process, suddenly it's like, oh yeah, we have to shoot this trailer, we have to shoot this teaser. So you're sort of put the brakes on development for a bit, and you go into production, and you shoot you prep it, you shoot it, and then you're editing it, you're posting it, and then you're like, oh yeah, I also have scripts to write, and so it's sort of like a little bit of a playing catch up. So like as a producer, we try and inform a schedule that enforces earlier development of the written material, so that there is enough time, so that if you're shooting, like, let's say you're shooting in July and you're posting in August, that by September the trailer's ready to go, and we're basically just like doing final touches and everything. But Chris can talk about sort of the creative process in terms of like how it's a negotiation and a navigation of the schedule.
Yeah, it was very much like this is my first project that I've showrun and written and directed, and one that I could pour so much myself into. So it was basically like I was ready to get off the bench. I was like, okay, like I'm going to clear my schedule and work on this. But also because, given the events of last year, that was when the Atlanta shootings happened, like with the Korean spa workers, and seeing a lot of like anti-Asian hate happen. So I think like it wasn't a smooth kind of like, I think sometimes people talk about trauma being like, oh, I turned my trauma just like directly into art. It wasn't that like clear. It wasn't that like beautiful kind of like sort of thing. Like it was tough. It definitely lit a fire under my ass, but I think I had to process it. And it did, like the story is about a family, and I think I wrote the isolation that I felt we were all feeling from COVID, and also the isolation that Asian folks were feeling during a time of a lot of anti-Asian hate. And also just like isolation, being separated from your family when these kind of things were happening. So yeah, as soon as we got the development funding, I was very lucky to work with Abdul Malik, who's director of development at FAY, and we would just like draft, like, we would do our Zoom calls because he's based in Alberta, and we would just like draft the Bible and then get into writing the scripts.
I have a more specific, going from the development process and then also kind of stemming into the shooting process. The visual language of the series, because I got to watch a little bit, the visual language is very specific. It's very contemplative. Like it obviously has a specific look to it, and that's what you would hope. My question is that the visual language of the show and like how you saw it, was that already like living within you when you started the development process and you're like, this is my vision, I know it? Or did you find your vision through the writing process? Curious about that.
Yeah. It definitely started during the pandemic, a lot of time alone. And I just watched a lot of Asian films about family and tender, quiet, contemplative Asian films, like a lot of Hirokazu Koreeda and a lot of like Edward Yang, who's like a Taiwanese new wave genius. And taking that language and then talking to my DP about it, Alan Liu, and it was great because we were just on the same page. Like he was also watching these kind of things and he wanted to try shooting stuff like this. And so when it came to telling like a quiet, contemplative family story, we decided to go for it. And I think it's fun too, because in the teaser, it's very like, slow, long takes. in the series, we're able to play with aspect ratio and then also different, like in present day, it's kind of like quiet and the storm is there. So it's like, it's very staid. The camera is very locked off. But when we go to the colorful past for the dad and the mom characters, it's very much the camera is kinetic and moving around and we have more color. And that was all talked about with my DP and with, like, for example, Meryl, our production designer, and a costume as well. So yeah, it was kind of like built into it pretty early on.
Was there any big difference you found between what you wrote and what you actually shot?
Not a lot. Like, we very luckily we were able to do a ton of prep ahead, and like I met with my DP and we had like several meetings where we just planned everything. And Alan, like, I'm very lucky as a director that I can lean on Alan, because Alan would be like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great. Let's use a 12mm lens." I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But then we get to set and then I see it and I was like, "You're right. You're totally right." So Alan is like, I'm very lucky to be working and collaborating with someone who's like firing on all cylinders. And same with Shant, and also Lindsay Blair Goldner, like, and Lauren Sarmaki, like the other producers on the series. It was nice to be able to, like, they're amazing, and without them we couldn't have made the show. So I think it was kind of doing my best to communicate the vision and check in early on in the development process, so that we could figure out what was manageable within our budget and what we had to basically make creative compromises for. There are a few scenes that we did have to cut out from the script based on our last few days because we were running against the gun, against the clock. But mostly we got everything we needed. And then on top of that, we did a lot of cuts in the edit and made it tighter. But the show is better for it, but it's all part of the process.
So then, and going back to just the writing of it, I remember around the time that you guys had put out a call for writers. And one of the things I remember, like, it was an Instagram post and you're like one of the first all Asian writers rooms. So it's really busy in Toronto right now. I feel like I was talking to Daniela once upon a time and she's like, if I hear another person say that, I'm going to eat my hat. And so I'm curious about like how that all came together. Was it difficult being able to staff the kind of room, and what the creative process was like with these collaborators, how many writers you use, like curious about your story room and where in the timeline of development it happened for you.
Yeah, I can start with that, and then Shant, feel free to come in with more producer notes. But I think that we were able to get the production funding in November, and we got the news. So we charted out like, okay, let's hold if we're starting pre-production in March to shoot in April, May, then the scripts have to be done ASAP. So probably in the new year, January, February, and that's what we kept aiming for. And so in January, we sent out a call for all Asian writers of any skill level at all, and we just put it out on socials. And it's like, the thing is, Toronto is very busy, and there are a lot of opportunities going around, but it's still, the industry is still really hard to break into for emerging writers. Like, it's still, you need to have, your CV has to have, it's the catch-22 of like, we want someone to work at our company for a minimum wage with 7 years of it's like, how, like, I'm trying to, get my first gig this way. But we put out the call, we had 120 plus Asian writers apply, like just Asian writers. And so it was hard to choose, because there's so many good samples. But Abdul and I, because he was in the story room helping, he was executive story editor in the room, and we basically partnered in the room together for 1 week, 4 days in January. But there was just there's so much talent. There's so many skilled people. And it was nice to not only pick the folks who would complement the series and the voice, but also, especially as a first-time showrunner, find people who could also help me out too, because it's the first time going in. So, oh man, the writing room was amazing. Yeah, Leonard Chan, Mariska Almeida, Leland Du. We had Minvo on as the story coordinator too. But it was a lot of fun. And the script, we basically stuck to the episode outlines that we had in the development, what we sent in in our development stage. We used that kind of as a North Star for what we would cover in each of the episodes, but we fleshed out everything and brought a lot more nuance to the episodes, to the writing. Shant, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, other than just, it was plotting out, we didn't know if we were going to get it or not. And, it's 10 projects out of like 20 amazing projects go through the development round with them. And then they have to choose 10 projects. And that's a difficult task. And, we got the notification and we realized, oh, wait a second, this is supposed to be shot during a snowstorm. And it's November. So when are we shooting this?
And COVID.
And there was COVID, and originally we'd planned to shoot in Alberta, which was like, and we wanted like, a primarily Asian and BIPOC crew. And it was just we just found that it was gonna be really difficult to do all of those things, get the snow, get Alberta, get the crew. So we had to just make a list and decide what we could do. So we ended up moving from Alberta to Hamilton. Primarily because of COVID, but also because of, getting a really, building up and building capacity for a really exciting Asian and BIPOC crew, which is what we did. It was just amazing to see that on set. We put out the call. It's what we do at Faye Pictures. Like we are very active when it comes to finding new talent. And over the holiday break, Chris and Abdul were just reading samples, and then come January they were like, here are the people we like, and we looked at their resumes. And Marushka is obviously quite experienced and is doing Get Up Aisha and everything, so we were very excited to have her in the room. And then we just took the room off. And I think the critical thing to note was that I feel like we could have had an extra month in the room just to really give ourselves a chance to really lock in the scripts. And but it ended up working out the way it worked out. And it's just more time is a good thing. And so when you have it, make sure you use it.
I wanted to also shout out, we did eventually shoot some footage in Alberta. So we went with Kinosom Productions, who Shant met at CFC, Guillaume Cartier and
Gillian
McKercher, who are awesome. So, and that's how we, like, a lot of prep. So it's like we need to build Alberta into this story. It's a very, very like rural Albertan story. And so we were able to kind of come up with a shot list for our Alberta B team to shoot specific parts of small town Alberta, and then put that into the edit with our Hamilton footage to tell an Albertan story. And also, I mentioned costume before, Lucy Wong. Shout out to you because you're amazing. Yeah,
I think there were like 90 costumes on the show. It was pretty crazy. It was
a lot.
This is a big show, by the way. Like, this is like Chris was going through the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, like 4 periods in 90 minutes, basically, on like $500,000 budget. So
it was the scope was quite large, I must say. So kudos to Shant and Lindsay and Lauren and Abdul too for being on board. But it's nice because the clip we showed, it's part of one of the episodes that's just telling the dad's perspective, but it's almost like each episode tells a big thing about Asian families, a lot of immigrant families, we don't really communicate how we're really feeling. It's all about survival, right? So I thought it'd be really nice to pass the mic basically to each family member and kind of hear their story, kind of in the spirit of passing the mic to Asian elderly folks during last year when they were struggling a lot. So so that's why we covered a lot of different time periods and had fun with it.
Your budget must have been interesting.
It was. I mean, it worked out, and we're really happy with where we landed financially. And I think everyone's happy across the board. Everyone was paid decently, at least. Yeah.
And did you two, like Chris, did you apply with Faye as your production company for the development phase as well? Oh, wow. So you guys were partnered, you were locked in together from the get-go.
Yeah, the process was that we had just done a round of development with Trisha on her project the morning after, and had gotten a no from the IPF. Oh, sorry, are we running out of time? Or no, sorry, I think we have 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay. So we had not gotten selected for the 10 projects that year, and that was in 2020. And it was around December when Playback was releasing their 10 to watch articles. And one of the people that was part of it was Chris. And I'd read the article on my daily, wake up in the morning, read Playback, ritual. And we just went into our company meeting. We have company meetings every Monday. And I was mentioning it to Abdul, and I was saying, hey, there's this guy who's got a really cool article. We should maybe follow up and see what's going on. Let's do a general. And so Simone Swaby, who was our coordinator at the time, found Chris's contact information from somewhere. I love our coordinators. They are able to sleuth around and find people's contact information and get things going. And so we reached out to Chris, and Abdul took the meeting and talked to Chris about his projects, and one of them was Streams Flow from a River, this idea for this web series, and we started to get into it. And I think there was a big question mark because it's not a traditional web series, in the scope of what we've sort of seen in the landscape has mostly primarily been comedy and really sort of snappy humor and all that kind of stuff. And this was very much like this very slow burning, Asian cinema inspired story. And we took a meeting with Carly at the IPF about a couple weeks before our application, and just sort of preface here's this project that we're bringing in that's something you probably haven't seen before in your applications. And is this something that, we could potentially see success with? And, she responded that really IPF's goals were to support and elevate amazing talent, regardless of the genre, regardless of the themes, as long as there was a vision behind it. And we were able to present a clear vision with Chris's project, and we're successful through the development process, developed it with Chris, and then brought it through to production. So get a producer early. That's a good
We have a very different
Agreed.
story than you, Shant.
So different.
So different. We made it to the other side.
I think it's time for us to flip.
Oh
Yes.
Flip.
Okay. Do you want to introduce the teaser, or shall I?
Go ahead, Aisha.
Okie dokie. Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Drop. So the Drop is about two women, Polly and Zara, who wait in line professionally. So they wait in line for luxury goods the day they drop, for people who are too rich or too lazy to do so themselves. Every episode is a new lineup, and every lineup is a new adventure. And what you're about to see is our teaser that we generated in 2021. And as I say that, my heart goes, ooh, because that was so long ago, but not so long ago. So you're going to see the teaser for one of the scenes we shot, a proof of concept scene. And so, yeah, that's what you're going to see.
Dude, we've been in this line for 6 hours. How do you not have to pee?
Oh, I used to work at an Amazon fulfillment center. If you double them up, you can drop a deuce.
Ew. Oh my god, it's happening! It's happening!
This is where we come in.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Theo. What's up? I hope we're all staying hydrated. I know some of us lined up last night. Looking good. Okay, I have some unfortunate news. A tragedy has struck our streetwear community. The Canadian Pacific Railway's train that was transporting all of our primo luxury streetwear had an accident this morning, flipped off the tracks and into a schoolyard. No injuries, but some deaths. Probably some injuries too, actually.
No!
Yeah, it's a national tragedy.
It is a tragedy. How many innocent pants were destroyed?
It is not about the pants, Karen. Okay, it is about the tops. This is the first year that they came in Ultimate Gray.
Are you saying the Primo stock stands at 0?
That's correct. Yeah, the train.
Wait, y'all are bringing this shit in by rail? What, is it hand sewn too?
It is actually, by kids.
Oh my god.
Hello, Dion. Hi. I can't acquire the shoes for Christopher's birthday. I'm so sorry. How about we circle back?
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I wanna go viral, babe.
She's not wrong.
Memories.
Oh, the memes. Yeah.
Memories.
My favorite part is when the guy in the suit is like, "I'm sorry, Dion, I cannot acquire the shoes." I always crack up at that. It's amazing. Yes, as Mark mentioned, we have range at the IPF. Look at these very different projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, Shant, take it away. Go.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, I'd love to just pick it up where we were just leaving it off with the producer conversation, and just even like getting in, because it's interesting as a producer looking at that material, looking at that work, and being like, okay, budgeting decisions, right? Like ACTRA. Okay, so there's ACTRA BG that's back there, like. You know, like, okay, how are they managing this? Like, they've got this door, and like, you know, it's like all these kind of like budgeting decisions that are being made, and costumes. Like, it's like sort of like, obviously it's like certain things are taking priority in order to make sure the comedy works, right? Obviously we're not like seeing the person get hit by the car. That's really expensive for VFX. Like, so can you talk about like from a producing standpoint, like how you're looking at the budget for that, you know, piece? And you shot 3 pieces, right? You shot and you shot that all during the development phase, or was that? So can you tell us about that piece, and then also why you did 2 other pieces and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I guess to start with the whole budgeting thing and like the producerial thing, I guess both Danielle and I kind of sometimes call us a one-stop shop production company, because like I've basically had a very aggressive hand in pretty much every short film I produced, and Daniela prior to this has self-produced 2 web series. And so I think at the foundation of this, we both had a relatively strong producerial knowledge on the indie level, which was like within our scope. So I think that to note that we'd both have producing experience beforehand, maybe not at this budget level per se, but like in and around it. So that's the first thing to note. And then when it comes to these kinds of considerations, I think when it, like, for example, like not picturing Nadine Baba being hit by a car, like those things, I feel like it's just like being industrious as a filmmaker, whereas less so like in the writing, we just know we can't afford it, so we're not going to write it, which is kind of, it doesn't necessarily entirely maybe speak to your question, but I do think that as we were writing, we were just like, we have to write this on the cheap and go. And so like those kinds of decisions are just made for you because you know what is expensive before you can even dream about it. Daniela, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think regarding budget, when it comes to development versus production, I mean, a budget should tell a story. So when you're making this budget for funders to look at, it needs to be very, very clear for them to see your script and then look at the budget and see how they make sense together. Yeah. And then when it comes to the producer aspect of it, Aisha and I were able to undertake the development phase without having like a capital P producer and working under that title as well. But when it came to our actual show, we partnered with Elizabeth Yates at True West Films, because that's when we were like, okay, our budget is $500,000 and we need someone who is a producer. So, you know, yeah. And we actually partnered with True West Films in January. So we went through development and production funding at the IPF as just a duo, with the title of showrunner, producer, writer, director, actor. And then when we were applying for Bell and Ontario Creates, we were like, we need a producer. We need someone with like a seasoned producer who's going to make this happen for us so that we can also commit to the creative. So yeah, it's been a heck of a year.
And then also just speak to your question earlier, Shant, about like why we chose to do like little proof of concept scenes. At the time, like the IPF was really gracious. They gave us these passes to JFL, and like we really used them. And also we did pitch. We were pitch finalists for the JFL digital series pitch competition. So we did pitch. But what we found when we were talking to these executives and stuff, especially given the nature of our production, like we are really trying to make like episodic comedy, beginning, middle, and end, like similarly to like, let's say The Simpsons, where the world is kind of like back to normal by the time that like the episode is ended, and the new episode, new characters, but then the same characters, but a new situation. And so with that, we were like, we didn't necessarily think that a trailer kind of vibe that like kind of really told the beginning, middle, and end of the arc. And the characters do have arcs, but we didn't think that was going to serve the story. And when we were having these meetings with like different executives, whatever, they were like, I just want to see what the thing is. And so we were like, okay, let's just tonally, like, instead of like trying to craft a narrative of like what's the like a serialized series, because we are not really serialized, we were like, why don't we just show our writing chops, show that we're funny, and give a window into what people would expect if they watched the thing. And so that's why we decided to do so. And I think it was specifically because of the format, and that dictated what we were going to do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the follow-up question, I think, is you mentioned that you found a producer. I think that there are probably a bunch of folks in the audience who have a concept, have written, are able to write the scripts, are able to put together a pitch document. But how did you find your producer? And then also that dovetailing into how did you find your audience, or how did you communicate your audience to that producer, being like, hey, we have a show. This is the teaser. This is what we've shot. Do you want to partner with us?
Sorry, you go.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say, well, the thing is that made it a little bit, I don't want to say easier for us, is we already had $200,000 in the bag. So it was kind of like, we got money, we got to choose. We really weren't that arrogant though. We were working very hard. But you go, Daniela.
I was just going to say that we sat meetings with different production companies, and then we decided to work with someone who we felt aligned with our values as filmmakers. They say, to be, conscientious of who you partner with. And we really did want someone who was going to allow us to maintain creative autonomy, but also guide us in the best way possible. And we just really worked well together and like trusted Elizabeth. And like, I'm really happy with how the show looks.
Yeah. Just to like kind of stem off of that, it was having said, and I also think it's important sometimes, and maybe this is from my acting background, and maybe Dani, you also might identify this. It's like, as a person with the talent, and then with like, sometimes we forget that we have something. And like, for example, an actor needs an agent the same way an agent needs an actor. It's symbiotic. And I think that really and truly, because Daniela and I had come so far in the journey, like on our own, it was, I don't want to say, not arrogance, but like seeing our inherent worth and really wanting to partner with people that like, because it's like, we knew that we could do this, and we wanted to, obviously like bandwidth, right? But we wanted to add to our team in a way that we felt empowered working. And so I think that one of the things that really assisted us when it came to finding producers and like making the decisions we did was recognizing our inherent value, which I do think sometimes, especially with women in POC marginalized communities, like it's sometimes really, it's hard to recognize that. And then also when it comes to like, I guess, conversations around, I don't want to say imposter syndrome, but like in and around that, it's like, it's important to know, yes, we are good. You have something and like you have something to offer and it's a partnership and it doesn't have to be like, this person is telling you what to do. Yes, the producer does tell you what to do, but you know what I mean? So I think that was another facet of it.
Totally, like knowing your worth, knowing what you bring to the table so they can meet equally with producers. One follow-up, and then Shant, you can take the next question. But the follow-up was, I'm sure a ton of folks are also wondering, how did you find the contact for these producers? How did you reach out to them? Like, is it just find them on Instagram or that sort of thing? How did you go about it?
I think one good way of doing your research is looking at past recipients of even the IPF. Like it's literally a list of production companies. Some of them might not exist anymore, but their names are still there. So you can find them now easier than ever through things like Instagram. So it's just about being persistent and doing your research and speaking with people and just sending those emails out.
I also think another facet of it is going into like these festivals. Like if you do get granted a pass to go to Banff, oh yeah, Banff was wildly helpful to us as well. So like we had digital passes to Banff and we also had, we went to JFL and just stemming off of Daniela's, her point, like doing your research, like looking up and seeing who the delegates that are attending. And like, cause for example, he ended up being really helpful to us when it came to like writing reference letters and that kind of stuff. I just met him in like a 5-minute thing. He's like, I'm not accepting pitches. And I was like, that's cool. I just want to talk. Can you tell? So having said that, doing your research, especially like you can look up past lists of things, but looking up the delegates and the people that are going to be in attendance to these festivals and like really trying to utilize it. So yeah.
And one thing, what is JFL for people who don't know?
Oh, Just for Laughs, the comedy festival.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Sweet. I'm curious about like, so you went, you got the money from IPF and then you brought in a producer in January. You put in your application in for the Bell Fund. I'm assuming like the April deadline, and like Ontario Creates also the April deadline, I'm assuming. So you're sort of like putting this whole thing together. You're sort of packaging it, and you're also pitching to Bell Fund and to Ontario Creates a budget that, like as you said, like tells the story of this is what is the written material, and this is how we're going to execute upon it. I'm sort of curious about how you then, sort of went about thinking about how to spend this. Like let's say you got this $500,000, which you ended up doing. How did you end up thinking about spending it, and like going non-union, like again, coming back around to the sort of prioritization of where are you putting your eggs? Because you can't, unfortunately, we're not like Disney. And as Aisha said, like if someone says the town is busy, someone's going to eat their hat. Like the town is super busy, and you shot during a very busy time. Like we just shot a movie in August, and that was pretty crazy in Toronto. Like how did you navigate just sort of like all that money stuff?
Yeah,
I think we just again, like when we rewrote like crazy to make things work, and we knew that our show was about line waiters, so we needed to have the budget for background, and this was an actor production. And so we were very diligent about rewrites and about moving things around in the budget to make things work. And we really just, I know this sounds like a vague answer, but we were just on it up until we were shooting and while we were shooting as well.
So that line 11 was pretty big, I'm assuming.
Oh, baby. So it's interesting though, because like as performers, like a lot of our friends are performers, and a lot of them are union performers and we were really blessed with these cast members. So like it's like because they were like given the tier we were at with ACTRA, like they weren't making a lot of money, but they were making some. And so I think that cast ate up cast BG, that kind of stuff, that did eat some of our budget. But I do think, like as Daniela says, like the story of the show is it's about people in front of a wall waiting in line for said thing. And so you have to, it's like there's no real way to realize this show for the screen unless we spend the money there. So we spent the money there, and like that's
and the
way
dialogue was like dis, so people don't care that it's against a wall, you know.
Yeah, and like setting yourself up for success, and like that's the thing, especially because like us making a show about late stage capitalism, like what you saw in that video, in that teaser, like it's dark. Homegirl gets hit by a car and people want to take a picture of it. And so like I think that we really worked as like, and when you talk about like the budget, like writing, like we put our money where we needed to. So like A, the story, writing, and B, perform of a talent. And so yeah.
All right, I think Mark's going to bring in the Q&A.
Right on. Thank you so much, everyone, for that conversation. There's been many positive comments that have come in from the audience about how insightful that was. I was having a great time backstage listening to all of it. I will get through some rapid fire questions from the chat about the IPF, and then I have 2 specific questions that we can end on. So hopefully both teams can touch on those. So Gavin asked, do Montreal projects support French language projects, or do they support other languages? So our Montreal office supports French language projects that are developed in the French language specifically. We split our financing 2/3, 1/3 in that case. And of course, series can include other languages like streams flow from a river, but the projects do have to be developed in English or French, but they can of course include many other languages in them. PDA Studios asks, what credits make you eligible? Any credit, including a short film. So if you've written or produced a short film, that would make you eligible to apply. I will say, though, that for the evaluation process, we do look at the team. And so if you're really new and emerging with a great idea, that's fantastic. But in that case, we would look to who you've reached out to outside of your network in the story editor or development executive role to help you make this project feasible. So both teams talked a lot about production companies or producers that they brought on board, which is super helpful for us because we want these projects to be as successful as they can be, while also giving new and emerging creators their start. And Christopher brought up the catch-22, and we get that question a lot. And it's really about networking at the festivals Aisha mentioned, and reaching out to delegates and production companies, looking at alumni through the IPF and trying to make connections that will help your project, people that believe in your project, and you have a little bit of money to pay them. Hanlon asked, how do you get equity? Like, we're an equity investor, how do you get paid back? So we're a percentage of the budget, and we're also a percentage of the profits of the series. So you put together your financing, you sign the contract. After that, we make a percentage of the profits afterwards, including subsidiary and subsequent works as well, but only the profit of those shows. Prelit asks, do you need a proof of concept in order to apply? No. Our old program did need a proof of concept video in order to apply for production. We've now given you development financing in order to make that happen. So when you apply, just a 3-page creative. Michelle asks info for a strong application and also themes that are typically funded through the programs. I think the teams here today have talked about all of that. If you want more insights into our evaluation process and what makes strong applications, the other part of my presentation, just email me and I can send you those slides and go over them with you. Okay, so that brings me to the questions for you guys. Hanlon asked, both of your budget you mentioned were around $500,000 or $500,000. They also asked, did all the funding come from one place? And it did not. I can say that. But I guess briefly, what are the other financing in your financing plan, in your budget? Where did that come from? And I know there are some other funders involved. How did you prepare those applications, because they are a little bit different from the IPF? And it's something you definitely need to think about during development, is other financing partners, because we rarely now support a series just with $200,000 from us. So maybe Shant and then Aisha and Dani.
Yeah. So we, having done the process before, and the thing is, I don't know, for whatever I know what reason, because we wanted to get the production happening in Alberta in the snow, all this kind of stuff. We had applied to IPF just as their deadline was in October, but also we had applied just about 15 days prior, like September 15th, 21, to the Bell Fund for their short form series application. And then we had missed the Ontario Creates deadline for their August 30th one last year. So we applied in April, and sort of we got the money after we had shot the show, actually, for Ontario Creates. But we applied for $200,000 from IPF, $150 from the Bell Fund, plus another $50 for discoverability. For the Bell Fund, they needed a market partner. And so we pitched it to Super Channel like early September, and they gave us a license commitment for the project. And so they put in a little bit of money into the project. They had actually bought it as, so we sold it to them as a web series for their Super Channel Online, which is like on Amazon Prime and on Apple TV. And then we also sold it to them as a feature, because it also feels like very much like an art house feature. So we stitched it together and we sort of sold it to them as a feature for their linear channel. And then we applied for Ontario Creates in the IDM fund in April, and we got that. And then we got some tax credits. So, yeah.
It's a similar story for us, minus the Bell Fund. So IPF, and then the Ontario Creates IDM, and then Narcity. Like, I guess you could call in kind money. So Narcity, like in kind services in support of the show, and then tax credits to make up our budget. Yeah.
Right on. Thanks, everyone. One more question that hasn't been in the chat, but I'm interested in hearing about is, of the different development materials you created, the proof of concept, the scripts, a more fully fleshed out Bible, what would you pick as the most helpful when you're pitching to streamers, other financing partners, production companies, etc.? So maybe Dani and Aisha, I'll start with you this time, and then hand it over to Shant and Christopher.
Okay, well, if I was going to hear a pitch, I would want to hear the structure of the show, the premise, what the world is going to be about. I want to hear an intro to the characters, the plot, and basically add things like, it's going to be so funny, like this other show, or like this other show. And Aisha just texted me and she said audience analysis, because it is very good to have an analysis that you can say, hey, we put out blah, and we know that these people are going to watch the show. I don't know if that made sense, that last part.
Yeah, that's exactly like the analytics. That I felt like that was really helpful, because it's like we already have numbers that can show you that like these are the people that are going to respond to it. And then from there, it's like even just marketing the show to them becomes so much more easy, because like you have to work a little less hard to find your audience, let's say. So that was helpful.
Yeah, like if you go through the development with the IPF, you have to post your trailer and then you collect your audience analytics. If you don't have any material made yet, I guess another good thing would just be to know who your audience is.
Yeah, I would agree. I think when you're pitching to a broadcaster or a streamer or whoever, the two things that they're going to ask is, because at the end of they come in at the last possible minute, even though they're part of they are ideally part of the process early, their participation is the last piece, which is basically getting it out there on screen. And ideally, if it's ad supported, making money on ads, or if it's subscriber supported, making money off of subscribers, right? They need to be able to make the money to actually pay you to do the show. So the audience who's watching it, are you able to present a pathway to the audience? And then not secondarily, but sort of as well, part of that is also, are you able to show a pathway to production? Because the thing is that if they need to be able to have something that is serviceable to be put on screen. So you have to be able to show them, A, we can tell this great story. A, it's a great story. B, this is how it's going to reach this audience. And C, this is how we're going to make it great and put it on your screen so that you can show it to audiences. So all of those components are critical pieces in order to make sure that it gets through to the finish line.
I think what was really helpful for us was we put out the teaser, and this is IPF encourages this, but you put out your teaser trailer if that's part of your development package, and you collect analytics. Like, so recently Get Up or Second Chance Hina, which is a series that's in development right now, is like, oh man, I'm so bad with names, but it's doing great. Like, it's got like 6,000 views and stuff, and that I think really helps with your Shazia. Yeah, oh my god, we pitched on Real Asian years ago. I'm so bad with names. Shazia, yes, Shazia is amazing. Put out the teaser for Second Chance Hina, and it's doing great. And I think showing that your teaser and also has an audience, that you have connection to the community, that you're trying to make the show for, that does a lot for building confidence in broadcasters.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone. Gavin, I'll say that if you have an English language project, but you're based in Montreal, it would come to the Toronto office. I'll just mention that before we go. Thank you so much to Shant, Aisha, Christopher, Dani, to the Real World Film Festival for hosting this panel and making a partnership with the IPF. This is the second year we've done this panel, and it always provides such insightful analysis from creators who have firsthand experience developing and producing a short form series. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone, for your time again, and to the audience for joining us today and asking such great questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Sure.